hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets across the country to protest the killing of students earlier this week. And doctors in Goma say a fourth person has tested positive for Ebola. The news comes as Rwandan officials deny they closed the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. But first, it's a major step toward peace in Mozambique. President Filipe Nyusi and the leader of the main opposition party, Renamo, have signed a permanent ceasefire agreement. It's designed to put an end to decades of hostilities that have flared since the end of the country's civil war in 1992. Catherine Kadir-Clifford has the details.
Embracing a peaceful future. Mozambique's President Filipe Nyusi and the leader of the Renamo opposition, Osufo Mamadi, mark an end to decades of hostilities.
To our brother Filipe Jacinto Nyusi, President of the Republic, we extend our appreciation for having broken down the forces that oppose dialogue.
The location is symbolic. Gorongosa National Park is close to Renamo's armed base. This is the country's third attempt at a peace accord since 2016. The culmination of years of negotiations to end fighting that has flared several times since the end of the country's 1976 to 1992 civil war. The conflict broke out a year after the country declared independence from Portugal. An estimated 1 million people were killed and several million displaced.
August 1st, 2019 will forever be remembered in the history of the Mozambican people as the day that brothers said enough to war between them and embraced to develop Mozambique.
This time around, some key issues have been agreed in advance. The government has signed over amnesty to some 5,200 rebel fighters who began disarming earlier this week. They'll be given financial aid to facilitate their return to civilian life, and some will be integrated into the army and police. Renamo is already an opposition party present in parliament, and following the accord will be able to stand in provincial elections for the first time. A final agreement is set to be signed in the capital next week, pledging peace in October 15th elections, a vote which will put the new accord to the test.
4 protesters have been killed and several others injured in the Sudanese city of Omdurman on Thursday. Hundreds of thousands of people had taken to the streets across the country after organizers called for a 1 million-person march to protest the killing of students earlier this week. Mario Sofos has the latest.
Piling pressure on Sudan's military rulers, hundreds of thousands of protesters took to the streets of the country on Thursday. In the city of Omdurman, across the river from Khartoum, medics reported that several protesters were shot dead and others injured by gunfire. Along with protesters in the capital and other cities, they were rallying against the killing of fellow demonstrators earlier in the week and over recent months, as well as calling for the army to hand over power to the people.
Today is a special day. It is a day for the martyrs who died for this country. The martyrs of December till the ones of today, until the revolution gets its rights.
We're asking the military council to hand over power because this is a civilian revolution. We've had enough because our husbands and our children have died for this country.
Organisers had called for 1 million people to come out and march in response to the killing of 6 people, including 4 school children in El Obeid on Monday. The talks between protest leaders and Sudan's military chiefs were meant to resume on Thursday, with the aim of finalising a power-sharing agreement, the outline of which had been decided on last month. This week's violence, however, does not bode well for the resolution of Sudan's ongoing political crisis.
The World Health Organization has confirmed there is now a 4th case of Ebola in the city of Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Doctors in the North Kivu province said the wife of the man who died of Ebola this week tested positively for the virus. Meanwhile, Rwanda's health minister said the border with the DRC remained open on Thursday. That contradicts an earlier statement which reported the border had been closed. Earlier, I spoke to Emanuele Capobianco, the Director of Health and Care at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He has an update on the situation.
What we know is that the men who contracted the disease in the north of the country came to Goma with a got sick and was hospitalized only 2 days. So there was a long period in which he was infected and he was living in Goma with his families. So it's not surprising that 2 members of his immediate family got sick, and there is the potential of more immediate contacts becoming sick.
And how are your teams on the ground responding to that possibility of other people in the city becoming sick?
So there is a large response of the Red Cross and all the partners that are in Goma that has been preparing over the past several weeks and months for this opportunity, for this eventuality. So we do have vaccinations teams on the ground. We have increased surveillance. We have Ebola treatment centers open and functioning. We have isolation centers. We do have a safe and dignified burial teams that are manned by Red Cross volunteers that are on the ground, ready to provide burials to people who died from Ebola or are suspected of dying for Ebola, including the man that was buried today, actually.
So the World Health Organization declared the crisis a public health emergency of international concern about 2 weeks ago. That has, of course, helped increase response on the ground. But how do organizations and health workers deal with the continuing threat of violence in the region and sometimes against them?
The violence has been a constant problem over the year-long effort to contain this epidemic. The best way to fight violence is by getting the communities, the families on the side of the respondents. And this is done by engaging community, making sure that they understand what the disease is about, understand what a vaccine is, to understand why going to an Ebola treatment center is not a death sentence as many feared, but is actually sometimes the only opportunity for a person to survive. If we get communities on board, the violence will decrease, and this is what has been happening over the past recent months. We just need to continue to do so, and on a larger scale.
Yeah, of course, and because we've had more than 1,800 people that have died from this outbreak since last year. Why is it that we're still seeing new cases? What needs to be done to put a definitive end to the outbreak?
The outbreak is happening in a very difficult zone. The virus has been moving extremely fast, and somehow responders have been chasing it. We need to do a few things. One is ensuring that we increase the quality of the response, the extent of the response, and particularly we strengthen the community systems. Second, we need to make sure that it is engagement of families, communities, so that they are part of this. Third, we need to make sure that the response is not only focused on Ebola, but we also tackle those other health needs and humanitarian needs that are critical for the population. That will get the community support and engagement that is absolutely needed to turn this epidemic around. We have all the tools that are needed. They need to be brought to scale. We need to have the operational ability to bring this in all the locations where the virus is appearing.
The Somalian government says the mayor of the city of Mogadishu has died after he was badly injured in a terror attack last week. Abdurrahman Omar Osman died of his injuries in Qatar on Thursday, where he had been airlifted following the attack. A female suicide bomber belonging to the Al-Shabaab group entered the mayor's office on July 24th before detonating her explosives. Both the group and Somali officials believe the target of the attack was James Swan, the UN's new envoy to Somalia. Swan left the office just minutes before the explosion. Mauritania has a new president. Mohamed Ould Ghazouani was sworn into office on Thursday. The new leader was a general in the country's army before serving as defense minister. Simon Harding takes a closer look at the man who will now lead the country of 4.5 million.
He's only Mauritania's second ever democratically elected president. The right-hand man of former President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, has now been sworn in and takes over as leader of Mauritania, continuing the dominance of the Union for the Republic political party, formed by Ould Abdelaziz in 2009. Often making decisions backstage on behalf of his predecessor, General Ghazouani has had a long military career. Twice, he was part of military coups that overthrew the head of state, the latest in 2008, when alongside Ould Abdelaziz, he deposed Sidi Ould Sheikh Abdallahi. In 2008, he was named as Mauritania's Chief of Defence, a position he held for 10 years before being appointed as Defence Minister of Mauritania in October 2018. The son of a spiritual tribe leader, Ghazouani has promised to be the president of all Mauritanians, to strengthen the army and security in Mauritania, but in particular to address the drastic differences in social equality and class in Mauritanian society.
That does it for this edition of Eye on Africa. The news continues on France 24 right after this.
Your needs are changing, and so is France24.com. With articles, reports, the latest international news, all our programmes available on replay, together with live broadcasting 24/7. Intuitive, fast, and available in 4 languages. France24.com. Liberté, égalité, actualité.